Padre, Mistico della Carità è il titolo del suo nuovo libro, anche se non è la prima volta che lei parla di San Vincenzo dei Paoli appunto come mistico della carità. Ci può spiegare in cosa consiste il misticismo di San Vincenzo dei Paoli?
Mhm. Well, usually when people think about mystics, they think of somebody who has visions that are extraordinary or direct revelations from God. But that's not the type of mysticism that St. Vincent had. His was a mysticism of charity. And so he did have visions, but his vision was seeing Christ in the person of the poor. And he was absolutely convinced that Christ lived in the poor person. And so he said it beautifully to the Daughters of Charity one time. He said to them, 10 times a day you'll go out to serve the poor, and 10 times a day you'll see Christ in the person of the poor. And Christ is there just as surely that you and I are here today. So he really believed in it deeply. And the revelations he received were revelations that he received from poor people. And so he believed that we should be listening to the poor first of all. The first service that we owe to poor people is to listen to them and to know what they're asking of us. And that varies very greatly. So sometimes people are asking for food, clothing, houses. Sometimes people are asking for education, and so today we tried to imitate St. Vincent in doing that too, and so we're beginning this 13 houses project that St. Vincent himself did in order to serve the poor. He built 13 houses along the street alongside the houses of the Daughters of Charity in order to lodge children whom he found on the street. And the number grew very quickly from finding one baby to 1,200 babies. So you can imagine trying to serve 1,200 babies at the same time in those houses. So today, the Vincentian family is launching a 13 houses project because we hope to begin what we call the Vincentian Family Homeless Alliance in 150 countries throughout the world, with the goal of trying to reduce and eventually do away with homelessness. And it's catching on very quickly. So far 35 countries. It was launched only in November of last year, and so far we have 35 countries on board, and we hope to have another 10 within the next few months, so we'll get up to 45 or 50 very quickly. So that was St. Vincent as the mystic of charity.
Padre, lei nel prologo parla di immaginazione o comunque della possibilità che ha animato la vita e l'operato di San Vincenzo. Quanto è stata importante la componente della creatività nell'operato di San Vincenzo dei Paoli? Qualche esempio concreto ce lo può fare?
Mm-hmm. Well, St. Vincent was very creative in his service of the poor, and that's why he had such a variety of works. So he began, for example, probably the greatest example is with the Daughters of Charity. Until the time of St. Vincent, sisters were enclosed in convents. And St. Vincent, different from people who had gone before him and had tried to do this, was able to liberate them into the world. And so the sisters lived in Paris and served poor people all over the Paris. And so they become known as sisters who were on the street. And there's a famous book by Cardinal Sunens written after Vatican II, but that was called The Nun in the World. And it was about Vincent de Paul and how he founded this new type of community that would serve the poor on the streets of Paris. And they served them in 1,000 different ways. So they built the homes that I mentioned, the 13 homes before. They ran schools. They ran orphanages. They served on the battle. France was in a 30-year war at the time. They served on the battlefield during the war. And that was another part of St. Vincent's creativity. He had this wonderful ability to link the rich and the poor. And so during the wars that France was undergoing at the time, he was able to raise $60 million and use that to help people whose homes were destroyed or who were hungry or who were abandoned in the time of the war.
E quindi diamo un buon motivo per leggere questo libro, sia a chi conosce già San Vincenzo, ma sia anche a chi non conosce proprio la figura di San Vincenzo dei Paoli.
Mm-hmm. Well, for those of you who know who know Saint Vincent, it's easier for me to motivate you, because Vincentian spirituality is at the heart of our lives in the Vincentian family. And so in this book, I've attempted to focus on what was really in the heart of St. Vincent, and this wonderful combination of action and contemplation. So for the Vincentian family, it's easy. For those who don't know St. Vincent, I just encourage you to get to know him, because he was an extraordinary saint, and he's the patron of charities in the church. He was also involved very much in the formation of the clergy and the reformation of the clergy at the time. In fact, he was one of the principal figures for the reform of the clergy in 17th century France. So get to know him.